Okay, everybody, this is another video in the series for MTH service videos. Try and help you out with various aspects of fixing your trains. Today, what I've got for you is smoke units. And what we've got are, I'm going to go through three main types of smoke units that we have. And I'm going to stick to the O gauge type. I won't get into the HO. So what we'll start with is an O gauge smoke unit. As you can see, this one's got some use. I've got my own little custom harness I built for it to plug into a test fixture, but so your wire colors will be different. But I want to point out some of the main features of the MTH smoke units. This is a standard O gauge smoke unit, and as you can see, it's got a motor, it's got a chamber for the motor impeller, and then behind this black rubber here is the smoke chamber, and you've got a brass cup as your exhaust stack. You have two pieces, and it's a little bit difficult to see here with this rubber gasket in the way, and I'll show you on the other ones. You have two chambers. You have the smoke chamber and you have the fan impeller chamber. So as the fan spins, it blows air this way into the smoke chamber. Inside the smoke chamber are heaters, and then it vaporizes the smoke fluid and out the stack it comes. And that principle works for all of our smoke units. So on this O gauge smoke unit, you have, like I said, the wire colors are different, but you'll have two wires going to the smoke heater, and you'll have two wires going to the smoke fan. And that's going to be the same on all of the smoke units, especially the smoke units I'm going to show you here today. So first thing you want to do when you assess a smoke unit is what kind of smoke output are you getting. If you're getting weak output, then you can safely assume a couple of things. And the most common problem that you're going to see is that the smoke wicking material has just been used up. It's a replaceable item. You can purchase it online, and I'll put the links down to everything that I'm talking about in this video at the bottom of the video, so you can link right to it. Also, anything else that I put in there, any pertinent information, I'll put down below the video. So if it's not smoking very well, you can hear the fan running, but you're not getting much smoke output. You've put fluid in there. And an important note on this, when you add smoke fluid to an MTH engine, be it O gauge, G gauge, HO, ideally what you want to do is you want to turn the smoke unit off. So if you're using DCS, just turn smoke off. Or if you're running it conventionally, turn the smoke pot full counterclockwise. In HO they have switches, so flip the switch, turn it off. And then for O gauge, you want to put somewhere in the neighborhood of, and we're talking about a fairly dry unit, between 12 and 15 drops of smoke fluid. Smoke fluid comes in a couple of different containers. We have them in little eyedropper bottles. We have them in larger plastic bottles. However you use it, whatever smoke fluid you use, you only want to put about 12 to 15 drops in there, and then turn the smoke unit back on and verify that you're still getting weak smoke output. If you get normal smoke output, well, there was your problem. But we're going to assume that you've got an issue where you're probably going to need to replace the smoke wicking material. So when you do that, you actually have to disassemble the smoke unit. So this is what I'm going to show you how to do. And once you see this O gauge one, I'm going to do the G gauge, and I've got a couple of small O smoke units. The procedure is pretty much the same, so you'll get a good idea, especially after I'm done. So Phillips screwdriver. You notice you have 4 screws on this smoke unit. These 2 screws right here hold the smoke impeller chamber in place. You don't need to remove that to replace the smoke wicking material. All you need to do is remove these 2 screws here and here to get at the smoke wicking, and you'll also get at the heating elements. So there's the smoke chamber. Let me get that rubber grommet off of there. It depends on the smoke unit. Some of them have these rubber gaskets in there, some of them don't. But now you've got your smoke unit in its two main components here. You have the smoke chamber, and you have the smoke heating elements and the wicking material. And you can see all this material right here is the wicking material. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the wicking material, what it is and what it does. This is essentially like a fiberglass strand, and in fact, I will show you the smoke wick material is a part number AA1, and you can order that directly from mthtrains.com, and you can get it in a package like this. And as you can see, it's a braid, and then it's frayed at both ends. And the idea is you want to keep it in this state. Now, however your smoke unit looks today, the existing one that you have, when you go and replace the smoke wicking material, you want to keep this in this state. Don't unravel it. So, with that said, when you have the smoke wicking material in there, you can see that the frays, when we ultimately get this done, the frays will be down at the bottom of the smoke chamber. So they'll be down there like this. And those act as a wick, and it will draw the smoke fluid up into the material and soak the entire material. And as long as you keep this chamber with a little bit of smoke fluid in there, this will maintain its moisture level with the smoke fluid, and you'll be able to generate smoke. Again, the important thing is you do not want to ever overfill the smoke unit. You do not want to put so much smoke fluid in here that it's running out and coming out of the cutout for the air chamber and leaking all over the place. It causes problems. You're going to end up cleaning up a big mess, and the smoke unit will not smoke very well once it's flooded. So just be advised about that. So we want to take the existing smoke wicking material and replace it with a brand new piece. So how do we do that? Well, it's very easy. You can see that these two elements right here, if you just take your finger, just gently pull it apart, voila, there's your wicking material. And you can see what happens over time, right? It chars it, and that's normal. This wicking material actually isn't in terrible shape. It would probably be due for a change here pretty soon though. So when you see it starting to look like this, a smoke unit is not something that you have to maintain every month or anything like that. You'll know when you start having smoke problems that you'll need to take a look at and open up your smoke unit. Now, I've got this removed from the engine, of course, for the sake of this video. If it's installed in your engine, you can see that there are standoff posts, and they got screw holes in the bottom here. Find where those two screws live on the bottom of your engine, remove them, and then you can pull the smoke unit out. There's usually going to be a connector. I've got a custom connector that I put on there, but there's usually going to be at least one, sometimes two connectors that will connect the smoke heater and the smoke fan lines to the board. And then you can unplug it in most cases. Not all, but most cases you can unplug it, and then you can have the smoke unit in your hands free like I'm showing here. So now that we've got our old smoke wick, we'll get rid of that. We've got our, take a look now while you have it in front of you, take a look at the heating elements. Now you'll notice that these are two wire wound resistors, and in the case of a standard O smoke unit, you have two resistors in parallel. You'll see that they come up, and these two big solder blobs right here connect the two resistors. They're in parallel. These are two 16 ohm resistors, and when you have two resistors that are 16 ohms in parallel, you get an 8 ohm load. So if you were to take a multimeter, which is a good item to have, and you can see right now it says OL for over limit. I'm going to take my two probes. I've got my multimeter range set to, function set to ohms, and I'm just going to probe one and the other, and you have to hold the probes on there for it to give you a reading. You'll see I have 8 ohms. So two 16 ohm resistors in parallel gives you 8 ohms. So that's how you can check if the resistors are good. Obviously, if they are cracked and broken in half, that's a bad smoke resistor. If you feel comfortable, you want to, you can solder in a brand new one. You can get the resistors from us as well, from mthtrains.com. As a side note, I'll be doing another video about shop basics. A multimeter is probably one of the best pieces of equipment that you can invest in, and you do not have to spend $150 on a really nice fluke or anything like that. You can go to Harbor Freight and you can get a $5 or $7 multimeter that will be able to read continuity just like we did, so you can check your own smoke units for cheap. So back to these guys. These are good. We ohmed them out. They come out to 8 ohms, so we're good there. Now you notice I left them spread apart a little bit, and when I removed it. So leave them spread apart, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take your brand new solder braid and you are just going to fold it in half like this. That's it. Now you got it like that. And then all you have to do is take the end that's looped, slip it in between the two resistors, and gently squeeze the resistors together. Do not squeeze the resistors together so hard that you break them or that you unintentionally touch them together. You do not want these two resistors touching one another. These heat up. The way these particular resistors work, you pass a current through them, and they resist the flow of current, and their byproduct of resisting current is heat, and that's how we generate the smoke effect in our engines. Is we heat up the fluid, vaporize it, and then blow it out of there with a fan. So now you've got this nice pinched new wicking material right in there. The other thing you want to make sure of, as you can see here, that's the exhaust port right there. All right, you want to make sure that that is free and clear all the time. Otherwise, you're going to obstruct the smoke output. So now that we've got this, we're going to take our chamber, and if you look on this side where the smoke impeller is, you can see that there is a little cutout right there. That's where the airflow comes through from the fan. You'll notice that on your smoke reservoir, you have that same notch. They line up. So what you want to do is take the frayed ends, put them down inside the smoke unit, inside the reservoir, and you want to make sure there's a couple little tricks here, and I'll show you. What you want to do is try and get it so that you've got, the idea is that you do not want to obstruct that airflow, and you do not want to obstruct the exhaust. So once you get it down there, and I'm trying to get these loose guys set down in there. Again, just like a lot of things you do when you're fixing trains, just take your time. You may have to pull it out, the wicking material out, and then put it back in there so it kind of falls in the right spot. You may have to do it 3 or 4 or 5 times even. The idea is you want to make sure that you've got it down in there and that it's not obstructing either one. Now, I'm looking down here. It's a little difficult to see on camera, but I'm looking down here, and we are free and clear, and we are not on the exhaust side of things. So I'm going to push that down a little bit more. It keeps wanting to ride up. Okay, there we go. Now we've got a good new wicking material in there. Hold that there and put your, I didn't put the gasket back in. I'm not going to put the gasket back in because a lot of smoke units don't have them. If they do, make sure you put it back in place. You can see that in this case the gasket also has a notch in it that lines right up with the air, the exhaust, or I'm sorry, the cutout for the airflow. And then put our second screw in there, Make sure those are tight. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention on there, and I'll show you on the G gauge one. It's the exact same thing for O gauge. There's a gasket underneath here to seal, and you can see it here. It's orange. There's a gasket that seals the entire PCB, this circuit board that you solder the wires to, and the screws go through inside of the heater resistors too. There's a gasket so that these air chamber and the smoke chamber are sealed, so that it is not going to leak out. Air won't leak out. And this is, of course, this opening hole here is for the air intake. So that is how you repack an O gauge smoke unit. Now that you've seen that, when I go through and do the G gauge and the small O, this will be basically a repeat, but it's just there's a couple of little differences, and that's why I want to show them. So now I'm going to take and just to show you, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to show you anyway. I'm going to take the smoke fan portion off so that you can see it. So there's your airflow, and you can see that it's not obstructed. That wicking material is actually set back from there. It's hard to see the depth on the camera, but there's your smoke fan and the plastic impeller, and the plastic impeller just pushes down onto the smoke fan. So if you're having smoke problems, one of the other things that can occur is that this impeller won't spin. It could be broken, it could be something else, and that something else is that it may just be the motor shaft might just be spinning. So what you can do, take a pair of needle nose pliers, grab one of the vanes and just gently pull straight out. There's your motor shaft right there, and here is your smoke impeller, and you can see that right there is where the motor shaft goes into, and it's just a friction fit. So if this is spinning, free spinning, and the shaft, and so you've lost the friction fit, what you can do is you can actually put just a little dab of glue on there. Now you got to be careful when you do this, because if you put like a CA, like a super glue in there, and you push this down there, if you ever have to get it off of there, you're going to have to completely break it and remove the motor and cut this out, and it can cause more problems than it solves. So the idea is, ideally you want to get a brand new impeller where that friction fit with the motor shaft and the impeller is better. You can also see down here 2 screws. Those are for your smoke fan. If you want to remove the fan, just remove those 2 screws right there, and the fan just comes out. So there's your impeller. We'll put that back in place. Just drop it in there and then push it down. What you don't want to do is you don't want to shove it all the way down in there. So you want to be able to, once it's in there, that should free spin without any problems, without any resistance. If you got that, then you're good to go. So now we're going to put this back together. There's the gasket I was talking about, by the way, and it runs all the way over on the smoke chamber as well. So then we're just going to put our screws back in place. And there you have it. You have a smoke unit that now has a brand new wicking material installed in it and is ready to go. Next I'm going to show you is going to be the G gauge smoke unit, and you'll see a lot of the similarities. Okay, here's the G gauge smoke unit, and it's got, and obviously you can see it's much bigger fan, bigger chambers, bigger board. Again, I've got my own little custom harness on there for my test fixture, but 2 wires for the fan, 2 wires for the heater, and then you have 4 screws for the smoke chamber, for the smoke fan impeller chamber, the air chamber, and then 4 screws here for the smoke chamber. Again, you can see these 2 big pads here, these big solder pads, are for the heater resistors. So we're going to repeat the same process for this G-gauge smoke unit. I'm going to replace the smoke wicking material. And so all you have to do is, once you've got this removed from your model, same type of deal here. You've got 3 screw holes where this will be mounted into the chassis in some fashion. It varies from engine to engine depending upon depths and that type of thing. So just remove these 4 screws. Okay, got the 4 screws removed, and break that seal there, and you can see there's your smoke chamber. Now there's this phenolic that we use a lot, that's a spacer between the smoke chamber and the air chamber. If that happens to fall off, just set it back in place. You can put a dab of glue behind there to glue it to one side or the other. The problem is you get the smoke fluid that we use is mineral spirits based, so unless you got a bunch of alcohol and you want to spend some time cleaning it up, glue's probably not going to adhere very well. So if you just set it back in place, when you put it back, you can just do it upside down, put it back in place, and then screw it back together. Make sure that that's lined up on the side there. Then you'll be all set. So actually, you can see that this is actually almost brand new wicking material. So what I'll do is I'll just separate this, show you it, and then put it back together. Now, what you'll notice is different about the G-gauge smoke unit is you have 3 heater resistors. They are the same heater resistors. I'm sorry, they're the same resistance. So these are all 16 ohm heater resistors. There's 3 of them in parallel. So the way that you would figure that is you would take the 16 ohms divided by 3, because you have 3, and that gives you roughly 5.6 ohms. So if we were to take our meter and measure the resistance here, take your probes, put them on one each, and if I turn this around, as the way I have my camera mounted, you'll actually be able to read that correctly instead of upside down. My apologies on the last time. So you got 5.4, close enough. Wire wound resistors have a pretty wide tolerance, so it does not have to be exact. You want somewhere in the neighborhood of between 5.2 and 6 would be fine. So now we've got the 4 screws, we've got the smoke chamber removed, we've got our wicking material, and we've got our 3 smoke heaters. And what we're going to do is then, just like with the O gauge, just gently separate that. There's one. Gently separate that. I always leave, and I would recommend, just leave the center one alone, and then spread the other one out, and boom, there you go. There are 2 wicking material pieces for a G-gauge smoke unit, and you can see how they went in there. And you can notice too, with the smoke fluid on there, that it will get all over your hands, it will get all over everything. It's mineral spirits based, so it's kind of like an oil, so you'll need to wash your hands with soap and water when you're done with all this. And if you get it on the outside of your engine, it doesn't attack plastic or anything like that, so don't worry about it. But if you want to clean it off, I would just recommend using some alcohol. So now that we've got our new pieces, and again, it's the exact same wicking material that we use for O gauge. It's an AA1. You fold them in half, just like before. Slide it in between one of the center and one of the outer resistors, and gently pinch the outer resistor back into the center. Take your second one, same deal, put it between the center and the other resistor, like that, and gently squeeze those together, and you have your new smoke wick material installed. Same deal here. The nice thing about the G gauge is that you have a lot more room. So this won't really interfere with the air chamber and the inlet chamber for the smoke. So again, frayed ends go down into the chamber, push the two together, and there you go. Put your 4 screws back in place. This camera's got a pretty nice wide field of vision. By the way, I'm shooting all of these on a GoPro Hero Plus LCD, in case anybody was wondering. I took the back off because that's where the microphone is, and if I left the cover on there, you wouldn't be able to hear me. So there's your G gauge smoke unit with brand new wicking material installed, and you are all set now. This thing should smoke like a cheap cigar. So there's the G gauge smoke unit. The same thing again like the O gauge. You know, these 4 screws, this is just a bigger chamber, just has a bigger impeller, and it just presses onto the motor shaft exactly like the O gauge. So I'm not going to take this one apart. So here is the small O smoke unit, and as you can see, it actually has the right color wires on it. So in all of the applications, whether it's O gauge, G gauge, or small O, you're going to have a purple and a brown wire going for your smoke heat, and you're going to have a gray and a green wire hitting your smoke fan. If you want to know what these colors are, this is PV, a positive voltage. The brown wire is smoke heat. The gray wire is 5 volts, and the green wire is your smoke fan. And we use a principle called PWM, pulse width modulation, to be able to spin the fan at a rate that we want and to drive the heating element at a wattage that we want. I'll get into pulse width modulation in a later video. It's a little more advanced and gets into more of proto sounds and how we do things with the board. So much like the O gauge and the G gauge smoke unit, you have your 2 wires for your heater, 2 wires for your fan, and an exhaust, and this has a single resistor, heating resistor in there. So you've got your smoke chamber and your air chamber. You can see that this design is a little bit different. The chamber is much smaller. This is just a small O. You would see these type of smoke units in like in a diesel. You would be like an S2 switcher. In a steam engine, it would be like a I'm trying to think. It's a small I think an H10 consolidation, something along those lines. It's got a really small diameter boiler where we can fit these little dinky ones in there. So the process to remove the smoke chamber to replace the wicking material, very much the same, but I want you to pay attention to here. You have 1, 2, 3 screws for the smoke, for the air, for the impeller, for the motor. Do not remove these 3, because all we're going to do is replace the wicking material. You want these 3 bigger screws right here. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to remove those. Just like with the other engines, you'll remove the smoke unit. It's bracketed to the chassis in some fashion. It varies from engine to engine. In this case, my bracket is, oh, there it goes. Okay. It wasn't holding up. Excellent. Okay, so there is your smoke unit with your wicking material, and there is your smoke chamber with its bracket to mount it to the engine. I'm going to set that off to the side. Now, this you can see was kind of in there funny. And they just kind of wrapped it around like a turban and set it down in there. If you see it like that, that's okay. We've actually kind of got a little bit better method to do this. It takes a little bit longer, but you'll get some good results. So we'll set that old one to the side. There is your smoke heating element, and you can see it's just a single heating element. It's much smaller than the others, and this one is 8 ohms. It's a single heating element at 8 ohms. So if we bring back our trusty multimeter, that will put the right way again for you. Put one probe on one side of the resistor, and put the other lead on the other side, and there's 8.2. Hopefully you can see that. It's 8.2 ohms that it read, and that's just fine. It's supposed to be an 8 ohm resistor, and all those values, like I said, are nominal. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to replace the wicking material, but we're going to do something a little bit different for this than the way you found it when I opened it up. Get rid of that. Just like the others, you're going to take your AA1 smoke wick material, and then what you're going to want to do is take one piece and you want to cut it, lay it in there diagonally like this, and you're going to want to cut it so that it's just slightly larger than the opening of the chamber. So right about there, let me get a pair of cutters. Right about there is where we're going to cut that. There we go. Now if it unravels on you, that's okay. Just kind of twist it up. And what you're going to do is you're going to kind of put it in there diagonally. And actually, you know what? Let's do this. This will be easier. If you take the frayed ends and just kind of, you can leave this frayed end if you want. And take this end, we'll remeasure. I'm going to be about right there. If you can try and keep it together as best you can, it's difficult. It wants to come unraveled as soon as you clip it. Get it stuck down in there diagonally as best you can. Alright, there we go. That's good. Alright, so there's one layer, and you can see that if you hold this, and I'll hold this to the side so you can get an idea, that's how deep in the chamber that resistor is going to go. Get the wires out of the way so you can actually see it. That is how deep into the chamber that resistor is going to sit. So looks like we're probably going to want another layer so that we have a good solid contact between the smoke wick material and the smoke heating element. Now what we're going to do is, the other thing you want to look at is the way that the resistor is going to sit in there. So the first layer that you want to put, if you're going to put 2 layers in there, and that's probably going to be all you'll need is 2 layers, and keep in mind that this will also it'll shrink just a little bit when you get it wet with smoke fluid. It'll kind of bunch together and clump together. The first layer you want to lay same direction as the resistor. So the resistor sitting in a chamber this direction. So your first layer you want to put it that direction. The second layer, or the top layer, if you had to put 3 in there, for example, you want to put against the direction that the resistor is sitting. So we're going to measure out and this is just eyeball. There's no exact science to this. You just want to cut it to about the right length. twist it up. These loose ends and stuff, just get them out of there. And you're going to want to lay that diagonally the opposite direction. And again, you're just trying to get it in there as best you can. But just like with the O gauge and the G gauge, you don't want it blocking that air. Okay, so there we go. So now what you want to do is you just want to kind of fit this. So you want a little bit of resistance when you push down in there so that the resistor is actually mushed down in there. And I can tell just by feel. This is where it's the small O's is going to be a feel thing for you. And 2 layers is not going to be enough for me. So actually I can take this one, and I messed up the first one, twist it up. And again, try and put it the opposite direction. So if you put your bottom layer the same direction as the resistor, then you can put the next 2 layers the same. The idea is you want as much surface area of this wicking material touching as much surface area of the resistor as possible so that you get the maximum smoke output. That's the whole name of the game. Alright, so we want that. And then we want that. And these, like I said, these can be a little bit trickier. Obviously you're dealing with much smaller sizes. Something else that will help you with this, that I'll show you here, this is a little tip that'll help you out with these smaller ones, is to just add just a tiny bit of smoke fluid to it so that it wants to stick to itself. So I've got my eyedropper with my smoke fluid, and I'm just going to put just about 3 drops in there. And you can see that the wicking material has absorbed it, but the nice thing about it is now I can kind of push it in these sort of stray ends. I can mush down in there and they'll stick because they are now wet with smoke fluid. There you go. So you want to make sure that the chamber is clear, which it is. You want to make sure that you don't have any of the wicking material sitting out on this lip, so that when you put the circuit board over the top, that you have a nice clean seal. And these strands are laying that way, so when I push down on this, they'll lay back over the right way. Alright, and now if you look down in there, you can see that if you got a couple of strays coming out of the exhaust, just use a small screwdriver and very gently just kind of push them away. You don't want to go in there and jam your screwdriver in there because you can break that resistor. Grab one of your screws. By the way, I highly recommend magnetic screwdrivers or a magnet to magnetize them. It helps a lot when you're dealing with fairly small screws with pretty fine threads. Make sure those are snug. Like a lot of things, do not over tighten them. Don't have to crank down on them to 100 foot-pounds or anything like that. And now you have a repacked small O smoke unit. So we made sure that the air exhaust through here between the chambers is clear. We made sure that the exhaust is cleared, and we got brand new wicking material in there. So that is how you repack an O gauge, a G gauge, and a small O smoke unit. So this is one of those user serviceable items that will help you go a long way into making sure that the life of your engine, and especially the life of your smoke unit, is extended. When you see smoke wicking material is looking like this, it's time to change it. Smoke wick material from us is very, very inexpensive. It's very easy to change now that you've seen it, especially. The only trick that is really for this is to get the smoke unit out of your engine in a way that you can actually access the smoke chamber. That's really the hardest part. So the tools that I used for this particular video: Phillips screwdriver, larger one; Phillips screwdriver, smaller one. I just had some cutters to cut the wicking material, and I used some needle nose pliers if I needed to push down or pull anything out of there. And I also used multimeter, and I used some smoke fluid. And the smoke fluid comes in a variety of sizes and scents. So that is how you repack the wicking material and taking care of your smoke unit for O gauge, standard O gauge, a G gauge, and a small O gauge. That'll do it for this one. I will have another video out soon for you guys. Take care.